Welcome to the Site Visit Podcast. Leadership in construction with perspective from the job site. With your hosts, Andrew Hansen, James Faulkner, and Christian Ham.
From the Site Mag Studio in Yaletown, Vancouver.
Let's get down to it.
Oh, we're back. Producer John gives us usually a 3-second countdown or a 5-second countdown, and there's this ominous 21-second countdown that all of a sudden disappeared at 18 seconds, and all of a sudden we're live. But we're here we are, we're back. Another roundtable. It's Tuesday morning, March 9th. It's 7:30 in the morning, just after. It's a beautiful day in Vancouver, and it's always nice when the sun is shining in Vancouver, and it's always nice when we have past guests on. And we've got Nick LaBelle from Waste Management on. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good. Good morning, guys. How's everything with you?
Pretty good.
Swell.
Good to hear that. Yeah.
I got a question for you, Nick.
Shoot.
Look at that product placement.
If you're, yeah, I know, it's pretty good. Have you ever had an argument with some girl or something and she calls you trash?
Probably.
Is it a compliment?
Yeah.
It should be.
Trash
Oh,
or
that's good.
yeah.
It's a bunch of garbage.
Well, it's good to have you on, Nick. We've been doing these roundtables since the beginning of 2021. We wanted to add another element to our podcast where we could bring in past guests to have more casual conversation, continue follow up on, past episodes where we, dug more into yourself and your business, but also give us a chance to cover topics that are more meaningful to maybe the times that we're in, or that's relevant, or the ever-changing nature of construction. And we had a conversation the other day at a great restaurant. Plug here, this isn't prompted, but El Guapo.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Yeah. Great little neighborhood spot.
You introduced us to this spot, and I got to say, it was a good recommendation, Nick. It's a fantastic spot.
Perfect. Glad to hear that.
I've been there 4 times since.
We only went there 5 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took my wife and daughter there. I think we were that weekend. Then I went with Christian. Then I went. Did we split the burger, Christian?
Mm-hmm.
We did.
Yeah, the In-N-Out style burger.
Oh yeah, they nailed that. It's got that potato
Hanson
bun.
burger.
The Hanson burger. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, what a really smart thing to do is just have a burger that's nailed. Like nowhere else nails that burger like that.
Yeah,
There you go. Shout out to El
It's a sensation,
Guapo.
I have to say.
It is.
So good.
So is it Wapo, you said?
I guess technically in Spanish, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to try to butcher it too bad, but yeah, El Guapo. Guapo.
Yeah, there you go.
Which means
Guapo,
handsome.
guapo.
It's a handsome burger. So.
Oh, is that what Wapo means?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Handsome? Or, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's handsome in general.
That's smart. I like that.
Speaking of
restaurant.
handsome,
Type that in the
Hansen,
Google-
Mr. Hansen.
Google Translate.
Yeah, where is Andrew should be coming back to us. He's been really busy though, hasn't he?
He's been smoking busy with his business Site Partners, and he's joining again on Thursday. We've got interviews now lined up, and so starting on Thursday, we'll be getting our interview series going. Andrew's got loads of these he does these really incredible videos and productions for his customers, and it tells a lot of great stories. And so I know that he's going to be bringing on some of these customers of his, and it'll be a really great conversation. But that's the update on Mr. Hansen. And
Is he the
but getting back to our
Jerry Bruckheimer of construction? he's like he's like the Steven Spielberg of construction videos.
That's a whole other topic of conversation, like how far videos go. And I think we talked about it with John Reed last week. But if you're not doing some great content out there with some videos in construction, start doing it. Talk to Mr. Hansen. It can go a really long way. But No, I think it was great to touch base. Obviously, we've always kept in touch, professionally, casually, just catching up, grabbing beers, and talking about just the way that construction changes, the way that our approaches change, especially coming out of 2020 and now through 2021, where we're getting back to at least not complete 2021 stuff, but conversation about it. And I think it's good to see how everyone has been doing through the last year, the last 15 or 12 months or so. And it's been cool to catch up with you, Nick, and to talk a little bit more, about waste services, about the changing nature of your own business and the types of customers you guys are going after. And also that logo on your shirt there. What is that?
That is the Phoenix Open, Waste Management Phoenix Open. It did happen this year. They did have some small crowds, but obviously it looked a lot different than it had in years past. Hopefully by next year, it's in February, Super Bowl weekend actually, which is always fun. It'll be back up and running, and hopefully I'll be down there. But that was just last month, so exciting stuff.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And that's one thing that even in the last few weeks, that if you're watching and following golf was one of the first sports back in June to kind of get back to just being live again and actually hosting their tournaments on a regular schedule. But they've also had fans the last little while, and the last couple of tournaments with just like the crowds and screaming fans in the background. It's been a bit of a refreshing thing just to see that energy return to sports. And it just kind of felt like, oh, that looked familiar. That was a little bit of a normal thing again. And I think coming to Waste Management Phoenix Open next year, that those massive crowds that we've talked about before on the podcast, because we love golf, I think those will be returning, and hopefully we can all be down there together.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, outdoor events are like the thing coming back sooner than anything else, I think.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say golf. I think out of all the sports, golf would probably, in terms of social distancing and just being outdoors, probably one of the easier sports to come back, because it's not everyone's crowded at one place, right? Everyone kind of follows their golfer towards whatever hole.
True. Yeah.
And, you can kind of make it look like there's more people there. There's a lot of people watching, rather than like a stadium you see these stadiums like in the NFL this year that literally had 5,000 fans. It was kind of like it just looked weird. So
it's one thing to have like a 60,000 person stadium and to have 5,000 fans dispersed out into like their seated areas, but when you watch golf and you have crazy guys like Bryson DeChambeau hitting 350-yard carries over lakes, it's hard to say, hey, you can't go follow that guy. So he's got literally thousands of the allotted crowd following him along, and that's why it looked like such a normal event. But it's exciting to see, and it's a fun conversation to have, because that's a big tournament on tour every year, and Waste Management is obviously that's their show.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, because it's even if you don't necessarily know the company, maybe you would know the company through that kind of branding and through that event. Obviously golf, I feel like is becoming more and more popular, and I think it's just to have that brand recognition of a huge event like that is really cool, especially for a waste company, which might not necessarily be at the forefront of other big sponsorships and stuff. So it's cool to see that, for sure.
Well, you think about the brands that have been involved in motorsport. They're a lot of them are oil companies, right? Oil companies are like Petronas, I think, is the big one in the U.S. But whether or not you think about that, it's obviously fueling the cars. But is that industry even in vogue now? So you talk about like what from a narrative point of view, what brands work with sponsorship. We're all buying too much stuff, and we got to get rid of stuff, and there you go. That's just the way.
In comes Nick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
income's
here we
next.
go.
Yeah,
I got a bin for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's one actually sponsorship. Speaking of sponsorships, and I think this is a very like 2021 kind of thing. Is I saw that there's this big crypto wallet called Crypto.com, and they actually sponsored an F1 team,
Right.
Aston Martin.
Hmm.
So that was kind of cool. I don't think before 2021 you would have seen that happening. So obviously with the digital currency kind of exploding, and so kind of just it's a small way of showing how things are shifting
Yeah.
in many industries, right? So
Do you guys take Bitcoin for your services?
yeah, you give me a Bitcoin, I'll pay it on the back end for sure.
Well, that's one thing that we've seen coming out of, and it's always funny, like referencing coming out of the year that we've had, coming out of 2020.
Yeah.
But just, that's the one thing we've seen. And when you start to see new brands and new logos or things that you've seen sort of before, and then you start to see more of them,
Yeah.
you can start to at least come to the conclusion, oh, wow, that company clearly has been adapting and doing quite well.
Mm-hmm.
In construction, logos are really prevalent. They're on construction sites. They're on swag everywhere. You're not seeing them on commercials or anything like that necessarily. They'll be on sporting events and all that kind of stuff. But that WM, which you're rocking so nicely on your mug and on your shirt, and is just so recognizable. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
something that necessarily. It was already a massive logo and a recognizable logo pre-2020. But it's good to hear when we're talking about things that have changed over the last 12 months, some of the things that we even were talking about. And I think that's just part of everyone's business. If they've done well through the last little while, they're going to have that story of change. And that's not just quick changes or little changes, but big changes that'll last. And that's something that I think would be good to cover as we, just unpack a few things. But you were sharing a little bit of something before when we met prior, and this was wasn't this like 2 weeks before everything kind of shut down?
Yeah, like end of February, like right before everything happened. So, yeah.
Which was crazy because I went back to listen to it again just to say I wanted to pick up on some of the topics that we had covered. And to see what the conversation was like before, because we had no idea what was going on. Mm-hmm. But you were just sharing about even a piece of technology that you guys have rolled out. Share a little bit about that, and then we can kind of unpack some things around it.
For sure. So first of all, I'll say I think Waste Management's done a really good job of integrating technology into the company. And I think we were just kind of pivoted in a way that we were kind of prepared for some of the changes that happened. Whether call that luck, call that being prepared, whatever, but it just so happened to happen. It went that way. So I think the product you're talking about is called our IoT button. So back last February, we were just starting to implement that in Canada. So we were just starting to get the ball rolling on the back end. So now we've actually implemented it and put it on sites. So that's been really exciting. We have a few select customers that are using it, and we're rolling it out to more. So that's been very, very exciting. Literally, so we talked about it on the last podcast, but literally you just click a button twice and it hooks up to our IoT system, and then it'll automatically book a next day haul. So I think just given how busy a lot of these site supers are, it just saves them a phone call, it saves them a text. Sometimes you forget, if it's 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon and, oh, I need that haul, bang, bang, you hit the button and we're good.
So when you're talking about a button, what does this thing look like? Put it in my hand. How big is it? What's the deal with this product?
I wish I had one on me, but I just gave the last one away. But it's maybe this big, and it's like a little white button with a Amazon logo on the back. And then you literally just click it, like it fits right in the palm of your hand. So it's a good size, and it's got adhesive tape, so you can stick it you could stick it in somewhere that anyone could use it in the job trailer kind of thing.
So how's it connected to a network?
So we have our tech team down in the US, and then it's connected through our booking system basically. Um, I'm not the tech guy, but yeah, it's
No, I'm just wondering,
connected,
like, if it's in the
you click
if it's
it, it
in,
works.
if it's in the site trailer, is it on their Wi-Fi network? Is it
Correct.
like
Yes.
it must be connected to some? Okay,
It is.
okay,
Yeah,
that makes
it's
sense.
on their Wi-Fi network. So
Okay.
it's hooked up onto there, and then it hooks up onto our internal system. And so if you have one of those IoT buttons, there's actually a special code for our backend system, which will tell our dispatchers that it's an IoT haul, meaning that it's going to be prioritized.
I see.
So that's kind of a cool feature. So it kind
Yeah.
of gives you that priority service. Not that we're not giving it already, but obviously if you hit that button, it'll come up IoT, and then they're like, okay, this needs to get routed for the next day. So
Was this
Does a
inspired by the Staples button at some point?
the easy
The
button.
yeah. I mean, it must have been inspired by that because I mean that's this whole thing. Hey, it's just easy as pressing a button. That's a colloquialism that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. So that was one big thing. Another big thing, and this is more on the operations side. So all of our drivers have tablets, and they have a program called Fuse. So rather than, obviously we used to do a morning huddle every morning, 5:30 or whatever line of business launches at that time, other times. But so rather than people gathering, obviously they will have their tablets. So now everything's done from the truck, so that they all don't have to gather in a small space inside. So that's been a pretty cool feature. So say if they have a safety topic or something that they need to discuss, the RMs, the route managers, can load a video onto the tablet, and then all the drivers can just watch whatever they need to know for that morning. So it's pretty cool. But that was something that we had the technology to do, and then when the pandemic happened, it was kind of like, okay, let's use this technology, to for social distancing and all that. So worked out
Right.
really well. Yeah.
With the button, I'm just thinking. So if like it's a superintendent or whoever's managing that component of the project, when they're clicking that button, do they know? Do they have some sort of? Is there a text message or an email, or can they log into a
Yes.
system to see that, to make sure that they've done that? You know, when
Yeah.
you've done
Yeah.
something like click your garage door button, you're like, did I close it?
Yeah, for sure. No, so it automatically, you'll have it set up with the site superintendent or whoever is in charge of ordering containers. It'll send you a text message, and it'll say, did you order this? It'll say click this to cancel if you didn't order it. So then yeah, it'll have that, and then we have another feature as well, that if you're the designated contact, we have this feature called On Our Way, which sends out an email to the site super, meaning that they finished the last job and now they're on their way to this one. So you can kind of expect us in that 20-minute to 45-hour range. So
Nice.
yeah.
And that obviously makes a lot of sense, right? Just streamlining things in general, because what would have it looked like before? I mean, they're pulling out their phone, they're making a phone call, they're writing something down, they're shooting a text message. Like, what did that process even look like before?
Yeah, so yeah, exactly what you said. Just yeah, it would be a phone call, it would be a text ordering what they need. But obviously these guys are so busy, they're dealing with so many things at once. So I think just taking something off their plate, that they could just click a button. And that doesn't mean that they don't call me for other things, but I think if it's just a basic, empty and return on their 40-yard, it's pretty straightforward. I think it's a good feature for sure, and I've got nothing but positive feedback from the companies that we're using it with. So it's definitely a conversation piece, right? Because it's something different. So that's what I like about it.
Have you
No,
seen
that's
any?
sweet.
Have you seen any differences like that in terms of practices that COVID has made you guys have to change at all, specifically with when you guys get to site? Is there anything that's more complex, that's more of a cost to do business?
I think just respecting the fact that people's safety, just always having a mask when you go to site, ideally checking in before. Another thing I've seen a lot is the QR codes on sites.
Yeah.
So I've seen that a lot, just to register so they can track who's been on site, whereas beforehand you could kind of walk onto a site and look around and see what's going on. No one would ever know you were there. And then, I think that the PPE factor is pretty big because it's just, it's a piece of equipment that no one really used before, right? So that's been kind of an interesting piece as well.
No, it's funny how something like 2020 forces compliance, even though in construction it's so critical that everyone remains compliant just because there's so much that can go wrong. But to hear, and we've talked a lot about the QR code, but it's like more and more with our customers, they're just like, okay, you guys have QR codes in your product. Can your QR code do this? Can I do this with my QR code? And you're like, it's crazy to think like there's been such slow adoption to things all around in construction. But if one thing has just totally caught on and that everyone is unified about, it's the QR code. And it's like a no-brainer. People they want to be able to check in. They want to be able to access safety reports. They want to be able to do deficiencies. They want to be able to do all these things. And it's not like it's brand new, but it's more widely adopted. And everyone's like, yep, give me a QR code.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just, the QR, whether that be the QR code or the IoT button or just the integration of technology on the job site in general. Like, I know John Reed quite well. He's a friend of mine, and, just his platform, I think is really suited for how things have gone. You guys too. So it's interesting. It's like you were saying, we've always had it, but it's forced compliance and it's forced a direction in a certain way, like waste management as well. Customer service digitalization has been a big part of our future. So just having the ability, this isn't really on my end, on the construction end, but just having the ability to log on to wastemanagement.com, order your 2-yard container or whatever for like a front load container, schedule your pickup days all online. So that's been something that's also been integrated in. So I think it was changes that were probably going to happen eventually, but it's just sped up those changes.
No, totally. And I think what's cool about the IoT button that you guys have created, so often, we're being inundated with software products. We're being inundated with technology. You could look at a superintendent's desk and they might have a 360 camera. They might have, a tablet or two. They might have, all these different things or whatever. But if they can, or have to remember log in to all these different tools or whatever. But if they can have something that's just so simple and it's just there and it's like, yep, I clicked it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That something can, that a process can happen after that. It's like there's just too many details for someone to have to manage on a job site, to have to remember what their login was, or, that did I message that person, or, do I got to go find that now, and all that kind of stuff. So anything that can take away from the distractions that go on a construction site, that can just streamline, that can keep things simple, that can do all that, is going to probably win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's all about streamlining and all about just making sure things are flowing and going as smooth as possible. One thing I've seen too that might have been happening before, but I feel like now it's a lot more common, is just a lot of the marketing videos for a lot of the general contractors with the drone footage. I find that's like a lot more common now, because you can literally just fly a drone out and see an entire site like from a bird's eye view. So I've found those videos pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
because it's just super cool, or because it's really effective?
Both.
It's kind of both, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
There's a company that has these. They're like these mini dome little airport things for the drone, and it's a scheduled drone flight. And basically, a little dome opens up, and the drone flies up and does its schedule, goes back, clicks in, and it's connected to Ethernet, so it goes and uploads all the footage to the cloud. So it's pretty cool.
That's wild.
Yeah,
like a little like an airport. Like there's actually like a central location that's regulated or whatever. Is like
when I say when I say airport, it's more like every site's little helipad.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
But you think? So go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking one thing that the adoption of all this stuff in terms of what you were saying, Christian, about like the ease of a QR code, when very there's a lot of very convenient things for us to do as consumers. Like, for instance, let's say you're on your Instagram account or your Facebook account. I mean, can you remember the last time you had to put your password in? No, because you're in there all the time. You don't have to, right? But when it's an individual operating as an employee or a subcontractor or a third party, you're now playing your business role. And your business role, like if I were to ask you what your email password is for your email account, you're like, I think it's this, or you totally lost it, right? And that's a business element. When you have to keep having to recall your password, and you have 10 or 12 different passwords for business, it gets really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're saying the streamlining thing, eventually, I mean, if construction had like a single sign-on that wasn't connected to your personal, if that makes any sense?
Yeah.
Man, that just seems to make sense to me, because you don't want somebody a company connected to your Instagram account, your personal one that's showing you pictures of you and your kids, or your Facebook account or whatever it is. But if it had something that was just your profile, what company you're at, and the sort of history of the different companies you've worked at, and that's all it does. I think that the whole you're showing up at a job site, like what you were saying, Nick, is when you guys show up as doing a haul, for instance, and you show up at the gate and you guys scan the QR code. Mm-hmm. Well, yes, Waste Management is considered a vendor subcontractor, because as a contractor, he's got a price. You got whether you guys are doing the work or not, but it's not as though you guys are there on site all day like a rebar company or a concrete company or a flooring company, right? It's a different kind of vendor relationship.
Exactly.
So and you're only there for, whatever, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, right? Whereas other people are there all day. So the COVID risk is way less with you guys. And it's the same with a lunch truck, or same with somebody dropping off safety equipment, or somebody doing a delivery of materials. The same kind of thing. So yeah, it's weird that you have to go through the same rigorous vetting to get into site as somebody who's there all day.
Yeah, and we've run into that before, where there'll be massive documents talking about exactly that, James, and so we've had to kind of pivot around some of those things, and it's definitely it can be a challenge, but I mean it's understandable, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting, being on site for literally, 10 minutes. The driver comes in, hooks the roll-off bin and leaves, comes back. That's it, compared to a company that's, like you were saying, on site all day. So
what's the, do you have maybe a radioactive question, but I mean, in terms of, do you see an increased diversity of, women in construction, with your workforce out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a priority of the company. I think Waste Management's done a really good job of inclusion and diversity in the workforce, on all lines of business. Obviously, construction is mostly male dominated at the moment, but I think there are, the wheels are in motion to start changing that, and even for drivers. Containers department, sales, everything. Like Waste Management is huge on diversity and inclusion, for all lines of business. It's something I think that's very encouraged. Yeah. I
mean, on the corporate side of things, I mean, it's not even a question, right? The question is that is the quintessential typical lady who we would all be friends with interested in that? I mean, the pool is smaller. They'd be like, I don't want to do that. But a guy might be like, hey, yeah, well, why not? Right? But I always find it's weird that there's certain pockets of construction that there's more women than men. For like traffic control, for instance, more women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you see the when they're putting the cones out, and the sort of the routing of closing down streets, etc. Those contractors. It's mostly ladies, and also in the safety, it's mostly So it's kind of interesting where that interest lies, though.
Yeah,
and it falls into.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it kind of falls under the conversation around change, and one that is a sustainable change, especially in construction. So yesterday was March 8th, International Women's Day. We saw so many, because I mean we follow construction companies. We're in the construction industry.
Yeah.
But it was really, really cool to see like everybody posting different shots of all the people in their business, and to see so many women in so many different positions of construction, project coordinators, project managers, yes, like you said, safety officers, superintendents, right?
Yeah.
Like, and to see it, like, it's so cool. Like when I was a project manager 10 years ago, like there was I think one female superintendent, and knew things through and through, ran their job site incredibly well, but it was like, holy, it was a bit like a total anomaly. And now it's like, I think it was like 10% of the labor force in construction and growing. And I think it's great to see, because an industry that has been so dominated in one way, just has so many different parts now to it, and moving parts, and needs that in it. So sorry, I cut you off, Nick, but yeah, no, it fits really well into the sustainable change matter with construction.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's great to see, and I think if, because you were saying that, oh, like maybe that's something that maybe the interest doesn't lie, but I think if the doors are open and it's encouraged, then maybe more women would get involved. If it's not just looked at as a boys club per se, if that door is opened up, I think that would make a huge change. Like even for our team, for the Pacific Northwest, two of the construction account managers are female in the Seattle market. So they're amazing. They're so good and professional and great at their jobs.
Yeah. So back to one other thing that you had talked about, and I want to know if this is something that that lasts. So you said that you guys were doing huddles with all of your drivers.
Yeah.
What did that look like before, when you were doing it more? Because I'm always curious to know. So much about change over the last 12 months has been communication based, video conferencing. We can talk a little bit about that too. You said you moved your teams to Teams, Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
But
correct.
So much of it is the way people have changed their rhythms and the way they do things. So what did it look like before, and what does it look like now? And will that continue to sustain, or will it even change further?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what it looked like before is, the guys would launch it at 5:30 in the morning. Everyone would go into our Coquitlam hauling district. Our route manager, Tony, he would have a topic for the day. He works with the roll-off crew, which is obviously all the guys who do construction. They would have a whiteboard. Everyone would be kind of gathered out around him. He would have a topic for the day. He would go through it. And then all the guys, they'd have maybe 10 minutes for questions, like, oh, I was on this site and that happened. What should I do in this situation, or what have you? Then they all go out, they do their safety checks, and then their air brakes checks, their horn checks, and then hit the road. Now they all go outside on their tablets, and all the videos and all the topic for the day, like I was saying, is all on their tablet. So there's just less interaction physically, right? So whether that's going to stay the same, I think it's going to be a bit of a hybrid. I think some things that I think are working well are going to stick around for good. Some things I think might revert back, because I think a lot of that social interaction people are missing, especially in the workplace, because you see these people every day, and now it's like, oh, you gotta stay 6 feet apart and what have you. So whether it's maybe they only do that twice a week, or I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to the operations team, but I think it's going to be a bit of a hybrid, where you're going to see some things that have worked well stick around, and some things might change and pivot a little bit. So
what I always love to see, and if you we're all on LinkedIn, but what's been really cool to see is that people with a pretty good following post, what do you predict the office will be like? And we've talked about this quite a number of times, just because it's a great conversation to have. You mentioned it. Some things could revert. people need social interaction. I mean, we're humans. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of the way that we're wired to be. Sitting here talking to you on a video screen for the rest of time, would take away an element of the dynamic of the relationship. But it's cool to see people post things, and and the question's always the same: who's going back to the office? Who's doing a hybrid? Who's doing a completely working remote thing? And with all of them, it's always not I wouldn't say overwhelming majority, but it's a significant majority talking about a hybrid approach. I think we were already on a path to that, with people saying, why do I have to work 8 to 5 in the office or 9 to 5 in the office? Why do I have to show up all the time? Why do I have to have, is someone always just keeping tabs on me? Well, we need to make sure that things are still very productive and that people can grow in their careers and businesses can grow. But I think that hybrid is going to be what sticks. And it's interesting to hear that when you talk about it too. I mean, it sounds very much like the same thing, even with habits out in the field and the way that you guys are doing those huddles.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. I mean, I think, like you were saying, it's going to become more of a hybrid model. I think the days of, you show up at exact time, and your boss is over your shoulder, I think those days are for most companies are probably done. I think just with the technology that we have access to, being able to work from home so easily now, I think it's gonna become like normal, like to have a work from home day. Whereas before they're like, oh wow, it was almost like a selling feature. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, to see what sticks and what doesn't. But I mean, go look around downtown Vancouver. They're building office towers. So they're not, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think a lot of people were like, oh, it's done. The office culture is done, da-da-da-da-da. But I think a lot of people are missing it because it's a bit of a separation from your home, where it's the last year, people are rolling out of bed, firing up their laptop, and it's like Groundhog Day where you're doing the same thing over and over. I think people miss that kind of, what do they call, third place. You're at work and so be interesting to see what happens.
I think what's going to change is the definition of performance in your job. Because one of the metrics used to be, in the old days anyway, are you on time or are you late every day? Okay, well, if that changes, so that metrics, it doesn't exist now. So and the reality is about, I mean, most of the people that we work with, that we surround ours with, you guys at Waste Management, us at SiteMax, our people are great. So, this is not a comment about our people, but, with other jobs that have less meaning, most people are not good at their jobs and they don't like their jobs. Most people, like most of the biggest life disappointment from most people is what they do. Very few people love what they do. Seriously, like if you look at the entire job force all over the world, that's a theme that's talked about all the time. So if that's the case, and some of the metrics of performance are gone, how do we do this? If most people would rather not work, then how do you grow a business?
There's so much to unpack in this one. I feel like we could there's just so many elements to this.
Yeah. But I know I always kind of go like super.
But I think that you even mentioned that there's no more late anymore, right? There's no more on time anymore. I think it is all about projects. Like everyone's got a project. If you're organizing a filing cabinet or organizing a set of digital files for your business, that's a mini project. There's going to be an expectation around, is that going to be done on Friday or is that going to be done next Wednesday, right? Construction is all project based. Account management is it's delivery based, right? You've got goals, you've got things you need to hit. So there is on time and late in terms of delivery of something. And I think that accountability to those things has to remain in place. And you have to get creative in how you do that, because you can't sit in front of them and sway anybody anymore, or push them, or persuade them to do something a certain way. You have to now do that remotely, or by looking at a video screen, or by communicating on Slack or text messages or in Teams or whatever. And so that's all going to change. And that's complicated and it's difficult. Like we did remote for a while, and quite a while, and now we're back and spread out in our offices and stuff like that. But the collaboration has just changed dramatically. And so one thing I've wondered, and this is like could open another can of worms, but like, okay, change, the office is changing, but you still see office towers being built. You see construction in our city, at least, is still trucking along pretty well. Do you think more people, because having an office is like a fixed cost that a lot of people would not like to have to assume, so things like a co-working space exists or whatever, and people can drop in. But with more like little hubs and more micro offices, I wonder if more companies actually have a physical office space, because they can have it's almost like just like a meeting place that's their own, that they can pop into when they need to, but it doesn't need to be for 20 people. It could be for 5 people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because
I don't know.
Maybe you don't need a huge corporate office in downtown Vancouver, but you have a micro office in South Surrey, you have a micro office in North Vancouver, and as people are on the road or whatever, they go to those spaces, right? And like you're saying, 5 people that can meet up for a meeting, and it's not like a central place that everyone has to go to. So I think, that could be a big wave. Absolutely.
What about the we're talking about that the metric of time and being late or not. In terms of the culture of the business, the other one that's hard to keep your finger on when everyone's in different places is the work dynamics between people. So when everyone's in a room, you can tell who gets along, who doesn't. But if everyone's on chat and all of these private conversations are going on, it's very difficult to get a pulse of whether the culture of your business is in peril or if it's healthy. Like if you walk into an office, if you were to go into let's just, obviously our office, if someone were to walk in, like an outsider would come into our office, let's say 2 years ago, and there's a buzz in there, there's a kind of a thing going on. You can feel the energy. It's not like a rock concert. It's a vibe. It's got a thing going on, right? So, and then you can go to some other offices and you go, man, it feels dead in here. So that's that metric of this thing, like, and that's kind of gone, like, or maybe it's not gone, maybe it's replaced by something else. We do our town halls, and we have everyone on, and you see the people who are participating, some that are a little bit more quiet, but it's not quite like when we all hang out together in person. People have to try harder in person. It's almost as though when someone's on a Zoom or a Google Meet or something like that, there's the opportunity to hide behind technology and just kind of disengage. Whereas people had to work at being themselves before.
The social.
Now they don't have to try. They can just be like, oh, I don't feel like it, well, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I think
there's a lot of things changing.
Can a lot of it be summed up in, like, if we're going to have sustainable change through all of this, things look so different, but to do it well requires a great deal of intention.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Right?
I was
so
going to say,
you did. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think company, like you were saying, James, with the vibe, right? Like, I think having that engagement, like maybe in a more fun setting to kind of have that social interaction, I think is going to become really important, because people are going to be working more remotely. So, putting effort into, having people come together for events and stuff, I think is huge, just to keep that fun dynamic going and that vibe, so that people are like, okay, like, I know these people, they're not just on a screen. We work together, we help each other out. I think that's going to be huge, because if you go a year at a time, you haven't seen the person face to face, you can kind of just hide behind technology and things. So I think having the ability to come together as a team and to interact with each other on a work level and a personal level, I think it's just going to be hugely important moving forward.
Well, also to have people, like people help each other. That's what communities are like. That's what companies are like. When you have people who are all similarly alike, and that's typically what corporate fit is. We all talk about that, whether people fit in a company or not. We have a kind of I wouldn't say we have an ideal customer profile who likes our business. And we also have ideal people who work for us, have the same mindset, et cetera. And we all can help each other. And I was listening to a podcast the other night, and what everyone is going through right now in terms of everyone has their own maceration of what they feel in terms of this pandemic, getting COVID or whatever it is. And then the uncertainty. When you match fear and uncertainty together, fear alone is good. We've been having that since we were hunter-gatherers trying to, run away from predators. That's fine. It keeps us human. But when you take uncertainty and match it with fear, it equals anxiety. And I think a lot of people are really anxious right now because they don't know what is happening. They don't have clear information. Everyone is providing a big mess of what we should all be thinking, and doesn't make everyone feel good. So, and then you take that and you go, and now we can't even be together to get us over this from a community point of view. All I've got is this 2D thing on the screen that's every time I talk, someone talks over me and there's lag and the video's not working and
dogs barking.
Well, and that's the best we've got. So yeah, hopefully what will come out of this, like this time next year, the result hopefully will be a lot of happy people. I hope.
Yeah.
And we're not going to take for granted what we have for many years.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make you reflect on what's important, and just the simple things like being able to go to an office and talk to your friend at work or whatever that may be. It's interesting too because especially in the United States, just seeing how different places have dealt with it, like because now you're starting to see Texas has opened up, Florida's opened up, but then California and other places are locked down. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of the long-term effect of those decisions, whatever way that goes. But that's something I've been kind of looking at and just been really interested in and how that's going to go.
Totally. Wow, we got pretty sentimental and deep here at the end, guys. But you know what?
Should we start singing Kumbaya?
That's what it's going to take for us all to persevere and to make it through and everything like that. So, yeah. I think there's a lot of great things said here, and things look different. It's good. There's a lot of good that can come out of that, and those that embrace it and those that dig in and put in the work and are very intentional about it will continue to grow and build strong culture. They'll continue to implement new technology and grow teams and grow teams that are diverse and that are healthy. And that's kind of what we need to see here. So it's good to, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, Nick. I mean, we talked a lot at our, when we had beers the other day, just about the changing nature of things, but anything you want to kind of finish up with or share or anything like that?
No, I think we kind of went over everything, but no, just, really appreciate your guys' time, and yeah, just really, really enjoyed the conversation. Obviously summer's coming, so construction's gonna start booming, and I'm just excited. I'm excited for the vaccines to come out, and hopefully, just like James was saying, kind of see where the beginning of the end, right? And see where we end up. So it's obviously a difficult time, but I think it's a really exciting time too. Just the way things are going. So no, just really appreciate your guys' time, and really good conversation. So
okay, awesome. Well, Nick, thank you so much. We're back on Thursday. We're getting our interviews back on track. We'll continue these roundtables every Tuesday morning. And like we say when Mr. Hansen is around, but we can say it too, let's get back to building.
Thanks for listening to The Site Visit, a podcast dedicated to leadership in construction with perspective from the job site. If you like the show, please subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. To learn more, check us out online at thesitevisit.com.